Thank you. You know, I've got the unenviable task, double-fold, first being the last speaker today, and the secondly following all the speakers that went before me. So, yeah, thank you. The topic given today was waste to energy and the impact specifically on the plastics industry. So I'd just like to make three sort of introductory comments, just to give context to the content and structure of the presentation. And the first is that waste to energy doesn't happen in isolation. It's part of an integrated waste management system. And that's what we would expound on just now. The second thing is, we as WastePlan, the company that I'm with, are technology agnostic. I'm not promoting a specific technology, nor are we technology experts, but we do understand the vital role that waste to energy has to play within the waste sector. We all recognize it's an emerging technology. If we look back a few years, and even today, there are proponents and opponents to waste to energy. There are people that say it doesn't belong within the circular economy. Again, we will address that. So, yeah, the last point is just source accreditation. You know, they say everybody is entitled to their own opinion, but they're not entitled to their own facts. So I've drawn facts from various institutions and organizations that I'm using to support what I'd like to present to you today. A good place to start, where to go, where should we go? How about quoting from Alice in Wonderland? Alice came to a fork in the road and saw a Cheshire cat in a tree. Which road do I take, she asked. Where do you want to go, was his response. I don't know, Alice answered. Then said the cat, it doesn't matter. And you know, I think the critical thing is we are at a proverbial fork in the road. We do need to know not only what are our options, but where should we be going? And it's been touched on by one of the speakers earlier today, is business as usual is not an option. We need to change, and unfortunately, I need to touch on some of the buzzwords of the industry, but they can't be left alone, they need to be unpacked. So we do need to change from being a linear to a circular economy. And the reality is, we are a linear economy. South Africa disposes 84% of the waste generated at landfill. Second thing is, what are the potential impacts of waste to energy? That's something we will be looking at. And I've touched on this, proponents and opponents to waste to energy. There are definitely red lights and green lights. I was sitting in on a webinar recently, and there was quite a strong response from somebody on the floor to a particular person that had a waste to energy solution. And they said it doesn't belong in the circular economy, and it's going to encourage people to dump waste. And I need to say, waste to energy isn't a mass burn solution. It's not. Incineration without the extraction of energy is considered equal to landfill. That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at harvesting energy. So with that said, how can and should waste to energy be integrated within the waste economy? Again, just touching on the linear economy, it's very much the take, make, and dispose philosophy. As I said, South Africa, with its landfill diversion, is proof of where we are as an economy. Europe, by contrast, I think it is Holland, that is a 90% diversion. They are truly very close to being a circular economy. There are various definitions of circular economy, and they've been touched on today. Essentially, it is adding life to the product, finding other uses for it at the end of life. Just to talk in some graphics, the linear economy, we know there is a minimal circularity of reuse of goods that are extracted. Most of it is a drop through. What we generate, what we use, we dispose. The circular economy, as we see, the bands are thickened, and that means as much as possible goes into this whole circular economy. What I find is a particularly good paper on this. We all started with, at first there was the reduce, reuse, recycle, the 3 R's. Well, we're now up to 10. But the 10 R activities within the circular economy have been put forward, and I think this does position waste to energy very well. If we look at the big blue arrow coming into the use phase, it is the I'm not going to go in depth into all the steps, but the refuse. I don't want this. And then we go through all of the different steps down to the usage of the product, and then the various bands after that, which is the reuse, and then the second one, the recover, refresh, refurbish, is a critical part to where our industry starts working, and in which I'll touch on a bit later. And then, of course, the recycling. We know we do achieve 90% at some of the major retail malls across South Africa. 90% diversion. So it shows what is possible. The war on waste is something that it's achievable with what we've got now, and what we're looking to is closing that last 10%, and that's where the energy sector has a use. And as we see that, the red arrow on the graph is the waste to energy part. So that, and if it's used in this context, I believe that would take away the major opposition for people that say it doesn't fall part of the circular economy. It's the last resource, the last resort before we actually dispose to landfill. Just taking that same circular graph and put it in tabular form, what we've got, that horizontal line that we've got across the bottom, is where we the recycling industry fits in, as well as waste to energy within that whole sphere of integrated waste management. The top, as we see, 8.5 from our next slide, activities are covered by the EPR plan. So, you know, they've been gone through today, I think, by a few speakers. But it is definitely the extent to which post-production and post-consumption waste is optimized. That is the extent ultimately that will achieve the true circularity in the economy. Just some harsh realities of the market we're in, because this isn't the fairy tale, this is the reality. South Africa, according to this study, is the third highest waste generator per capita in sub-Saharan Africa. As we can see there, 0.98 in that red band. And this, by the way, is a conservative estimate at 0.98, basically a kilogram per person per day. I've seen other articles where it's been up to 1.4, which would take us right next to the other one. And I think a few comments have been made today about data, the statistics that you can draw from it, and it just shows when you can get such a variance, the data isn't that, it depends what sources they're using. But I think overall the picture is there. We are the third largest waste generator. This is one that is really, to my mind, a call to action. It's from the World Bank. So what we see in the blue bands are production waste generation in 2016 versus projected 2030. There's, I'm sure, lots of AR models working on that, as well as 2050. If we see South Africa again in the red box there, by 2050, we will be way outperforming North America and Europe and Central Asia. As we can see, 516 million tons per annum is the projection. That's as sub-Saharan Africa. So there's clearly a massive need. You know, this is not going to be a single solution. It's going to take activities across the whole spectrum, from the AI to more sophisticated recycling solutions, to new emerging technologies for some difficult or non-recyclable waste streams. Here's a further one again, and all of this impacts on the overall, when we look at waste, it's waste collection. So this, you'll see that Johannesburg was rated by this international body as the 12th best collector of waste in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, that's quite a scary stat to me, because Joburg is by no means the worst one in South Africa. We've got lots of towns, cities, and villages across the country, and if that's the 12th best, and what this tells you is that there's a lot of waste. The majority of waste isn't actually ending up at landfills. It has to be a conclusion drawn from that. Once we've spoken about landfills, this is part of a document from AfriForum. As we know, yes, and we do understand and we recognize that waste pickers do play a significant role in the reclamation of recyclable, and it's particularly plastics that they're working on. However, it's also an indictment against the economy as a whole. The South African Waste Act long ago identified to eventually remove pickers from landfill. And it's not remove the job, remove the place of doing work. A person should be doing it in a formal place, extract value upstream. The closer to the point of generation that you move is the better the result you're going to achieve, rather than this is literally the end of pipe. So it is not the way to go. So now we do need to delve a little bit into plastic and landfill in particular. Stats from the South African State of Waste Report. There's a whole slew of challenges facing landfill. Number one being capacity. It is one of I'm just quoting two. City of Johannesburg, they, according to the information, have less than 3 years worth of landfill space available. City of Cape Town will exhaust all their landfills by 2032. I'm not going to touch on the rest, but they by no means better. So capacity at landfill is a severe challenge. Then we've got collection. We've seen already within the South African the sub-Saharan context that we are the 12th best. But from Polico, we see that we in South Africa are rated as one of the best from recovering the plastic and reusing it. That stat of 42% of the plastic is stated as being reused from what we generate every year. The challenge is where is all the waste going? We've touched on formal and informal collectors. Now, I'm addressing collectors differently to sorters. Collection is a mechanical logistics process. What we find is the informal market will collect, and it's not just at landfill. They will. We all see dustbins in the street, and they go to buying centres, and the buying centres sell to upstream, and then eventually it ends up as a recycler. So there's a whole lot of collection activities that take place from the informal sector, as opposed to the formal sector that would obviously run with let's say, efficient logistics systems. I want to just postulate one thing further on that, is that, and this is possibly the single biggest opportunity to create green jobs, to get rid of our national flower, which is, as we know, is that plastic bag, and to use some of the levies that are now being collected through EPR to be able to pay people to clean up townships, to clean up streets, to take plastics that are currently not recyclable by nature, there's non-recyclable, these multi-layer packagings, or they're unrecyclable due to contamination. Both of those are very viable feedstocks into a waste-to-energy plant. And if it can be monetized, it will be collected. So we will see a huge uptick on that. The next is the compositions of landfills. You can see I like the letter C, but again, the stats here is that 56.3% of the plastic that is generated ends up at landfill. And in the South African context, that's 1.25 million tons per annum that is currently going to landfill. we see the pickers, there's no ways we're achieving that sort of returns. It's not possible. It needs to be pulled out upstream. Then we deal with landfill compliance. 81.4% of landfills in South Africa do not meet national minimum requirements according to the Waste Act. When you add them all up, we can add a fifth C. So landfills are in crisis. And it is not going to be sufficient to bring in biodegradable plastic. All of these things have a place. As I said, it's the collection of all the activities together. But landfill is no longer an option, and it's an option with a very quick ticking clock. You know, there's a thing called the NIMBY rule, not in my backyard. You can put it anywhere, but not in my backyard. And they've been trying to get landfills down in the Western Cape. There's been, for the last 10 years, 2 specific sites fighting over where the landfill is going to go. When we contrast that to on-site waste management and moving closer to home, it is formal employment then. It is skilled. It is people move up the organizations as they go into managerial positions. And the big thing is working at source. Data reporting, the extraction, the recording, the reporting is crucial. The building up of trends, of being able to look at the results, identify further opportunities. That's where we see diversion rates improve. Just touching on, and I'm just using our company and of what it has achieved, that for the year 2022, we did 535,000 tons of total waste that we handled. 89% of that was diverted. And that's across the entire spectrum of clients that we manage in the commercial, retail, hospitality, medical. I can name all the sectors. We're not in mining, but so this is the art of the possible, and this is still essentially based on effective waste management. I just want to touch on this. So now, once we say we'll move one step closer to waste to energy, this isn't what was one of those 2 R's that we saw there before, the reduce. That is reduce the size of the packing, and that. No, this reduce, once a waste management is looking at zero waste to be achieved for our client, it's what can we do to not contaminate that product, which will allow it to be recyclable. A major portion of waste, in the absence of waste to energy plants, ends up at landfill purely because it was contaminated. So if we can reduce the contamination upstream, you improve the recyclability downstream. And that's one of the essential success factors that we're able to achieve very good diversion rates, essentially on traditional recycling. The rest of it, the avoidance of non-recyclables, and again, this is we interact, and this is not to promote our company, but it's just to say what is possible. We interact again with the waste generators, and we speak to them about changing procurement patterns, changing procedures in the buildings, which would then allow products to be reused. Don't buy the product X, buy product Y. That can be reused. This one can't be, or there is no market for it. So then we come down to the recover, which is now the alternative waste treatment solutions. Here, we just turn the pyramid around. And again, without going through, these are steps that we then engage with clients. So we start with a current state assessment. What waste have you got, and what do we need to do to work towards solving the problem? What we see is step 4 here. Once we've done all of these things, we've engaged with the client. That step 4 is where the waste to energy solution would be proposed. We've minimized, we've got you to 90%. We now can take you to a solution to get you closer, to very much closer to zero waste. So if if the industry as a whole approaches it from this point of view, I don't believe there will be the opponents to waste energy. We're not trying to replace recycling. We try to take this purely as the last mile. So now on energy plants themselves, I'd just like to address the main topic again. Given topic was waste to energy and the impact on the plastics industry. I just want to turn that around and say plastics and the impact on the waste sector. And I believe it's got a very good part to play in affecting the waste sector. And what we know is that most of the majority of plastic grades are acceptable as feedstocks in waste to energy plant. Purely the number ones, the PETs, and the number threes, the PVCs. A pyrolysis plant, for example, would not have that. They can accept minor trace elements, but we do have other solutions for that, because not everything has to go into an energy plant. There are other solutions, which is then what people then look at to say, we can't do that, but in fact, we would move up the hierarchy, and we would say that can be repurposed into something else. The second point is the establishment of waste to energy plants will create demand for plastic. That is currently, it's non-recyclable or it's unrecyclable. As I say, it's either unrecyclable because of the contamination. It's non-recyclable currently by design. But as the plants come in, and there are a few waste to energy plants that are going to be in the sector within the next year, before the end of next year. And as soon as you have more than one, you start having competition, the demand creates the value. So, and then even more, how do we improve the collection from the informal sector, a valuable part to play, before it even, which most of that material doesn't get to landfill. So we do see that as a massive job creation to the informal waste collectors. It's in my mind, the biggest green economy job that we could create. Then we know that waste to energy is an essential activity for the achievement by waste generators of zero waste goals. There are one or two of the major companies that are busy with the zero waste accreditation as we speak. What this will do, it will reduce the waste leakage that we currently see into the environment. Just one of the other numbers that comes to mind, I think it's 150,000 tons per annum of plastic waste ends up in our marine environment. So, and that's gone down your river courses. It's been taken from the land. It wasn't generated on the coastline. It's land-based. So it just shows how important it is to be able to pull that out of the environment. And I believe the job creation for the currently low value, no value plastics is real. It can be implemented, and it's going to be necessary to support the various waste to energy technology plants that are going to be running. And the big thing is it's going to extend the life of landfills. We've touched on how critical that is, and there are direct effects on climate change mitigation. The second part I'd like to look at, another way to look at instead of the impact on the plastics industry, is to say what impact can this have on the energy sector? And the first one is it is a contributor to energy security. We know we are in an energy crisis in South Africa, and again, every bit helps. Nothing is the silver bullet, the grand solution. But when it plays its part, it adds to all the positive steps that we need to make. The fact is, it is part of the renewable energy mix, and it provides baseload power, which is one of the key energy sources that is needed. And again, it fits together very nicely as in that family of the renewable energy. The next point, it is scalable and adaptable. You know, there are super plants, and the people have been talking to these super plants for years. They certainly exist overseas. There's a lot of, they say everybody wants to be second. Nobody wants to be first, but everybody wants to be second. And this is one of those industries that's proving to be the case. But the reality is that it goes from relatively small energy, where its energy uses could be for own use, to larger supplying into the grid. And we know with Eskom's, the deregulation, the wheeling is now a reality. We will be able to feed into the grid. That's we as a country. The other thing is the financial viability. The waste-to-energy plants are financially viable. And they're becoming increasingly so when you're comparing it against the rising energy costs, which will remain in double digits from Eskom. Just an interesting point, in UK, the energy from waste accounts for 3% of the total power generated. So it's significant there. Again, very close. This is in South Africa. So the plastics in the energy sector. So I mentioned that it was scalable. As you can see, here is a containerized system that would use feedstock of 5 ton a day. Now, 5 ton a day is not, it's half a truckload. And, okay, and we say, what are the outputs? That's like saying how much horsepower a motor car got. It depends very much on the size of the engine. In this case, what is the quality of the feedstocks? But as a typical profile, that would generate 85% oil. It would be 12% gas, which can be used for electricity production, and carbon black, 3%. So that's a small little 5 ton a day plant that would use plastic only. I just need to emphasize on that. To a bigger plant, here we're at 4 tons an hour. Now this takes dry sorted commercial waste. So with that, it is your commingled waste. It takes anything with the exception of the innards. You don't want ferrous, non-ferrous. Fortunately, it's high value, so it'll be out. You don't want glass, you don't want sand, you don't want stone. Clearly, there's no energy value in that. And there are a few waste streams that are problematic, but they say the solution to pollution is dilution, and we see it even in Europe, in Germany, and that the odd little battery that goes through their huge plants, there is absolutely no impact on their emissions. They read the emissions on a continuous basis, so it's a very known factor of what you're working with. But this here is a 4 ton, which is 800 kilowatts an hour electricity, and that's from commingled waste. And again, that's got a very good space, because when we talk of landfill waste, when it's arriving at landfill and a truck tips, you've got mixed rubbish. It's not the ideal time to be sitting and sorting plastic from the other waste streams to any meaningful degree. But that can and will be used in plants like this. This is a plant that is in operation. And again, when we see the changing landscape, the City of Cape Town recently issued RFPs for 200 megawatts of power, and there's a potential further 500 megawatts of power to follow. So the first one, as far as I'm aware, I think the others that are pretty close, but the reality is there's a lot of people now suddenly wanting to get into this space, which is going to create the demand. The competition is a great thing. This is not an it is an oversimplified graph, but the challenge is we've seen energy solutions go wrong out there, because they don't stick to these 3 basic points. The first thing is, what waste do I have? Now, what waste is? It's by quality, it can be by the characterization, it can be by contamination. There's a whole, it's a sustainable supply, it's continuity of supply. What are my needs? Are they to create energy for myself? Is it to get zero waste accreditation? I'm an international company, I need to be performing at this. It could be cost saving, it could be revenue generating. All of those are possibilities within the what need. And only once you've answered that, then you say, what is my solution? You know, they say, if you're a hammer salesman, everything looks like a nail. And I think where we've seen things go wrong is where technology has been put forward that didn't fit. It was put it was put between the what waste and what need, rather than the end of pipe. And again, that is why we are technology agnostic. We look at the solution and say, what fits your need? And in a lot of cases, it's the accumulation of waste from multiple sources that will actually give the needed volumes for a solution on a continual basis. Just to summarize then, we do see this. Waste energy is the final R activity, as we've seen in the circular economy. It will stimulate demand for use of plastic, as waste plastic as feedstock. It's the essential last step in landfill diversion. The truth is, it doesn't matter what we do, there will always be landfill unless we harvest the energy out of that. Any waste with calorific value can actually go to an energy plant. Plastics has the highest value. It is the most sought after. Yeah, it is. It forms an essential part of any company that has got a zero waste strategy. If they want it, this will be the final tip of the cone, the last step that needs to be done. Yeah, and I think the last point then, just to pick up on climate change mitigation, it's been measured that there's 50 kilograms of CO2 equivalency per ton of waste. So if we take that 1.25 million tons of waste that we currently dispose in a landfill, that represents 62,500 tons per annum of CO2 equivalency. And that number is way lower than it we know with all the waste that's not getting into landfill. With I've again seen stats. One is it's 4%, another will say 14% is the composition in a landfill. But it's at least that is a very significant climate mitigation strategy. And again, so just to leave you with it, it's achievable. And it's as the waste management companies fill up that last 1.5%, 1.5 of the 10 steps. That is the final to get that tip of the pyramid to close. Failing that, I think the South Africa's next goal is to increase its diversion by 20%. Now it's significant in tons, but it's very demanding still on us from if we see how much waste is still going to landfill. So yeah, the war on waste is able to be won. I think Europe has proved it, and we have the technologies. We've seen it today, but it's all part of an integrated system. It's not a standalone solution. Thank you.